election. It was, I think, in the summer of '76 or spring of '76, and Ford was president, and we heard about the swine flu coming in, and the president was going to have a tough re-election, or not a re-election, it was an initial election. So they had to attack this. So they immediately made it a political event. And they said, well, we have to stop this epidemic from coming. This is preventative medicine. So they rushed through some legislation. I think it was $137 million. Sounds like not too much money, but back then it was a significant amount. And we had a vote. And I remember in the House vote, there were two of us that voted against it. And the other one, the other person that voted against it was also a doctor, from Georgia, Larry McDonald. But the interesting thing is they rushed the vaccine through. The vaccine was not properly made. It did have nothing to do with the virus that was out there, so it saved nobody's life from it. It caused a lot of harm. More people ended up dying from the inoculation than they died from the flu that year. And that sort of was a lesson, like that's a little bit too extreme, but that's about what happens when governments get involved and do things for political reasons. But it was also because a lot of people ended up getting the vaccine. I think there were like 50 people or more had got Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is temporary total paralysis, and you can die from it, but most of them did get better. But it was a very, very serious complication of a virus, a viral injection, a vaccine. So that made me skeptical more so than ever, but just the principle of who should be taking care of these problems, private markets and doctors and patients, or should it be some bureaucrat or some international bureaucrat or some drug company that's trying to manufacture vaccines? That's really the questions that we should ask.
Well, moving forward then, having said that, should people be a little leery of these potential COVID-19 vaccines potentially coming down the road? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, they should be leery about it. Right now, I wouldn't think there's any indication for anybody to take them because I think all the scare tactics are scare tactics. Some people have died. There's no doubt, but very, very few of the many thousands that have supposed to have died, they've all had 3 or 4, a large majority had 3 or 4 other diseases, and they're elderly people in nursing homes. And they've been instructed by CDC and other politicians that when you the doctor sign a death certificate, if they have 4 different things, but they happen to have a positive test for the virus, that is to be put down as the major cause of death. So the numbers mean nothing. And then when it comes to how many people don't they measure, how many people got the virus and it had no effect. My son had it, and he got better without any treatment. So there are probably millions of people. The number, percentage-wise, the number is probably very, very small. We know that influenza kills a lot more people than the coronavirus, because we don't even know how many people the coronavirus killed, but it's a lot less than what they claim. But it's just a justification to rush and politicize it, spend money and get it geared up to have vaccines. But just from what I know, if next week they came out and said, we have a vaccine and it was 99% is going to protect you from coronavirus. Ron, don't you think you should take it? And I said, no, I don't want to. I wouldn't take it, but I think the one thing in a free market and free market medicine, the doctor and the patient and their attitudes make the decision, not a bureaucrat. When the bureaucrat makes the decision, what happens is what happened in 1976. People die from the treatment. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be individual. In a free society, everything is voluntary. But right now, we're moving in the opposite direction because, Fauci and Gates, they're determined that this is just the beginning and that we've just entered a decade of vaccines and that we're going to have vaccines for everything. And that to me is scary. And we need to get the government out of the business. They're not capable of providing protection. It's not the job of the government to make us economically secure or safe. That's the job of individuals, because governments tend to end up doing exactly the opposite.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how the government is dealing